The great hall of the Galactic Council was quiet. Too quiet. Counselor Zephyran felt something was wrong as he walked into the massive room. His bug-like eyes looked around at the familiar sight of 47 different seats for 47 different alien races. But something was missing. The human section was empty. Zephyran stopped walking. In all his years on the council, the humans had never missed a meeting. Not once. Ambassador Sarah Chen was always there early, sitting with her team and drinking that black liquid they called coffee. She would wave at him with that strange human gesture, showing her teeth in what they called a smile. But today, her chair was empty. All the human chairs were empty. Other council members began to notice too. The tall, blue Kretai whispered among themselves. The floating gas beings from Nebula 7 made worried humming sounds. Even the proud bird people from Altair Prime looked confused. Chancellor Vortok, a massive creature with gray skin and 4 arms, called the meeting to order. His deep voice echoed through the hall. "We will now hear the monthly report from Earth's representative," he announced, just like he did every month for the past 200 years. Silence. "Ambassador Chen?" Vortok called again. Still nothing. A nervous energy filled the room. The council members looked at each other with worried expressions. Some species breathed air, others breathed methane, and a few didn't breathe at all. But they all felt the same thing. Fear. Dr. Yilneth, the smartest being in the known galaxy, raised one of her tentacles. "Chancellor, when did we last hear from Earth?" Vortok checked his datapad. 3 days ago. They confirmed attendance for today's meeting. "Try calling them," suggested Admiral Kethvar, the military leader from Zephyr Prime. The Chancellor activated the quantum communication system. The massive screen in front of the hall lit up, showing the symbol for Earth. They waited. The symbol spun and spun, searching for a connection. No response. The computer announced in its flat voice. This had never happened before. Earth always answered. Their communication systems were among the best in the galaxy. The humans had helped design most of them. Vortok tried again. Still nothing. "Emergency protocols," he ordered. Red lights began flashing throughout the hall. In 200 years of council meetings, the emergency lights had only been used twice. Once during the Great War of the Inner Rim, and once when a black hole appeared near the council station. Council members began talking in dozens of different languages. Some made clicking sounds. Others hummed. And a few communicated through color changes on their skin. But they were all saying the same thing. Where were the humans? Zephyran thought about Ambassador Chen. She was a small human, much smaller than most council members. But somehow, she always seemed to fill the room when she spoke. She had a way of making the most complicated problems sound simple. When the Kretai and the Altarians fought over mining rights, Chen would somehow find a solution that made both sides happy. When new species joined the council, the humans always helped them understand the complex rules and traditions. They translated between species that couldn't communicate directly. They organized social events where different cultures could meet safely. The humans were everywhere in the council's work, Zephyran realized. They didn't lead the biggest armies or control the richest planets, but they were involved in almost everything important that happened. Dr. Yilneth was accessing her computer, her tentacles moving quickly over the controls. "I'm checking all Earth communication channels," she announced. Military, civilian, scientific, commercial. The room watched as data flowed across her screen. "Nothing," she said quietly. "Complete communication blackout. Every channel is silent." Admiral Kethvar stood up, his tall frame making him look even more serious. "I recommend immediate investigation. Send a fleet to the Sol system." "Agreed," said Vortok. "How long to reach Earth?" 3 days at maximum speed." Kethvar replied. The Chancellor looked around the room at all the worried faces. "We will adjourn this meeting until we know what happened to our human colleagues." As the council members began to leave, they moved slowly and quietly. Usually, after meetings, they would group together by species and discuss what happened. The humans always moved between different groups, talking to everyone, making sure all species stayed connected. But without the humans there to bridge the gaps, the different species simply left separately. The Cretai went one way, the Altarians another. The gas beings floated off alone, and the crystal entities clinked away by themselves. Zephyron stood alone in the great hall, looking at the empty human section. The chairs looked so small compared to the massive seats built for larger species. But those small chairs had held beings who somehow made the entire galaxy work better. He thought about the last conversation he had with Ambassador Chen. She had been excited about a new project to help young species learn about space travel. She wanted to create a school where different cultures could study together. "Think of all the amazing things we could discover," she had said, with that bright human smile. Now she was gone. They were all gone. Zephyron felt something he had never felt before. The Galactic Council had lost members before. Species had died out from disease or war. But this felt different. This felt like losing the heart of something important. As he walked toward the exit, he noticed the coffee machine in the human section was still running, making that quiet, bubbling sound. A half-empty cup sat on Ambassador Chen's desk. Still warm. Whatever happened to the humans, Zephyron thought. It happened fast. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the Sol system grow larger on the main screen. Behind him, ships from 12 different species formed a massive investigation fleet. Everyone wanted answers about what happened to humanity. The journey had taken 3 days. 3 days of worry and wild theories. Some council members thought the humans had been attacked. Others believed they had suffered some terrible plague. A few suggested they might have destroyed themselves in a war. But as Earth appeared on the screen, everything looked normal. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Zara, a young officer from the crystal planet Vextar. "All sensors show normal readings. Earth is in its proper orbit. No signs of damage or destruction." Kethvar nodded, but something felt wrong. Earth looked exactly like it always did. Blue and green and white, spinning slowly in the black of space. But where were the ships? Earth's space was usually busy with human vessels traveling between planets and space stations. "Take us closer," he ordered. As they approached Earth, more details became clear. The space stations around the planet were still there, their lights blinking normally. The moon base was operating normally too, but no ships moved between them. Dr. Yilneth, who had joined the investigation, connected her computer to the ship's sensors. Her tentacles moved quickly as she gathered information. "Admiral," she said, her voice puzzled, "I'm detecting all normal automated systems. Power grids are working. Climate control is active. Transportation networks are running on schedule. But what? No life signs. No humans anywhere." The bridge fell silent. Even the Cretai officer, who rarely showed emotion, looked shocked. "That's impossible," said Captain Mourn of the Altarian ship. His voice came through the communication system. 8 billion humans can't just disappear. "Take us to the surface," Kethvar ordered. The landing party included representatives from 6 different species. They wore environmental suits since not all species could breathe Earth's atmosphere. They landed in what humans had called New York City. The city was perfect. Buildings stood tall and clean. Streets were clear of debris. Vehicles sat parked in neat rows. Traffic lights changed from red to green to yellow in their normal pattern. But no one was there. Dr. Yilneth scanned everything with her equipment. "The air is clean. No signs of weapons, fire, or explosions. No radiation. No biological threats. It's like everyone just left." Captain Mourn picked up a small device from a table. It was still warm. This coffee machine was running when we arrived. Someone was here very recently. They searched buildings, homes, and offices. Everywhere was the same story. No damage, no destruction, no bodies. Just empty spaces where humans used to be. In one apartment, they found a meal half-eaten on a table. In an office building, computers were still running with work documents open on the screens. In a school, children's artwork hung on the walls and books lay open on desks. It's like they were living their normal lives and then suddenly vanished, said Zara, her crystal body reflecting the strange emptiness around them. But Dr. Yilneth made a discovery that changed everything. In a government building, she found a hidden computer system. Her advanced technology was able to access files that had been sealed and protected. "Admiral," she called excitedly, "you need to see this." The files showed plans. Massive, detailed plans that went back decades. Construction projects on the far side of Earth's moon. Mining operations in the asteroid belt that were much larger than humans had reported. Research facilities in the outer planets that the Council had never known about. They were building something, Dr. Yilneth explained, as she showed the images to the team. Something big. Look at these energy readings. The files showed technology that was far beyond what humans had ever demonstrated. Ships that could travel faster than anything in the galaxy. Engines that used energy sources the Council had only theorized about. "Impossible," Captain Mourns said. "Humans were advanced, but not this advanced." But the evidence was clear. For decades, maybe longer, humans had been secretly developing incredible technology. Technology that could move entire populations across vast distances of space. Admiral Kethvar studied the data with growing amazement. They planned this. All of it. The disappearance wasn't sudden, it was organized. More evidence came from other teams searching the system. The moon base had massive construction areas that were now empty. The asteroid mining stations had been stripped clean of valuable materials. Even the space stations had empty areas where equipment used to be. Dr. Yilneth discovered the most important clue in a deep space monitoring station. Her computers detected faint energy traces leading away from Earth. "There," she said, pointing to her display. "Exotic particle trails heading toward the galactic rim. The energy signature is unlike anything we've ever seen." The trails were weeks old but still detectable by the most advanced sensors. They led away from the Sol system, away from the Council territories, away from everything the galaxy knew and understood. Admiral Kethvar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. The humans hadn't been destroyed or kidnapped or killed by plague. They had left. All of them. 8 billion people had packed up their entire civilization and traveled to somewhere beyond the edge of known space. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why would they do this?" Dr. Yilneth was still analyzing data when she found something else. A small file buried deep in the government computers. It was locked with encryption that took her advanced computer several hours to break. When she finally opened it, she found a single message. "To whoever finds this, we're sorry we couldn't say goodbye in person. We left you everything we could. Use it well." The file contained coordinates to dozens of locations throughout the Sol system. Each location held technology and resources that humans had prepared as gifts for the Council. As the investigation team prepared to leave Earth, Admiral Kethvar took one last look at the empty planet. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of the galaxy, 8 billion humans were starting a new life in whatever they had found in the darkness between stars. The question that bothered him most wasn't how they had done it. It was why they felt they had to leave. 2 weeks after the investigation fleet returned from Earth, the galaxy began to fall apart. It started small. Trade routes that had run smoothly for decades suddenly faced delays. Ships carrying goods between star systems found themselves waiting in long lines at checkpoints that used to process them quickly. Captain Jextar of the merchant vessel, Star Dancer, sat in his pilot seat, frustrated and confused. He had been trading between the Kretai Empire and the Altarian Collective for 30 years. The route usually took him 4 days. Now he had been waiting at the border station for 6 hours. "What's the problem?" he asked the station controller through his communication system. "New security protocols," came the reply. "We need to verify your cargo manifest through proper channels. But I've been trading this route for decades. These are the same goods I always carry." "Sorry, Captain. New regulations require additional verification time." Jextar knew what the real problem was. In the past, when trade disputes arose, Ambassador Sarah Chen would make a few calls and sort everything out. She had a way of talking to both the Kretai and the Altarians that made them listen to reason. But Ambassador Chen was gone. All the humans were gone. The same problems were happening everywhere. On the council station, Councillor Zephran watched as simple discussions turned into long arguments. The Kretai Empire and the Altarian Collective were fighting over mining rights in the vegan cluster. It was an old dispute that came up every few months. Usually, the humans would suggest a compromise that satisfied both sides. But without human mediators, the argument grew bigger and louder. Both sides brought up old complaints and ancient grudges. What should have been a simple discussion about mining schedules turned into threats of war. "The Kretai have no right to those asteroids," shouted Ambassador Telvar of the Altarians, his feathers turning bright red with anger. "We were there first," replied General Vexmon of the Kretai, all 4 of his arms waving in the air. Chancellor Vortok tried to maintain order, but he didn't have the human's gift for finding solutions that made everyone happy. The meeting dragged on for hours, without reaching any agreement. Dr. Yilneth was studying the problem from her research station. She had been analyzing galactic records, trying to understand exactly what the humans did for the Council. What she found surprised her. "They were involved in everything," she told Zephran as they met in the Council's data center. "Look at this." She showed him records from the past 50 years. Every major agreement between species had human input. Every successful trade deal had been helped by human negotiators. Every technological breakthrough had involved human collaboration. "I never realized," Zephran said, studying the data. "They weren't just members of the Council. They were the glue that held everything together. The humans had done something no other species had managed. They talked to everyone. The proud Kretai, who usually only dealt with other warrior races, would listen to human suggestions. The mysterious gas beings from Nebula 7, who rarely communicated with solid matter species, had regular meetings with human scientists. Humans had created a network of cooperation that spanned the entire galaxy. And now it was gone. The economic problems got worse. Dr. Yilneth discovered that humans had quietly improved almost every major trade route in the galaxy. They had suggested better shipping schedules, more efficient cargo loading systems, and faster communication protocols. Without humans maintaining these improvements, everything began to slow down. The Centauri Commercial Alliance reported a 30% increase in shipping delays. The Rigel Mining Consortium couldn't get their products to market on time. Small businesses throughout the galaxy struggled as supply chains broke down. But the economic problems were nothing compared to the diplomatic crisis. Within a month, 3 different species pairs were threatening war. The Kretai and Altarians were still fighting over mining rights. The water beings from Aqua Prime were angry with the desert people of Arid 7 over terraforming disputes. Even the peaceful tree creatures of Forest World were having boundary disagreements with their neighbors. All of these conflicts had existed before, but humans had always been there to help solve them. Ambassador Chen had a saying that many council members remembered. "There's always a solution that makes everyone a little bit happy, instead of making someone completely miserable." She would listen to both sides of any argument, then suggest something that neither side had thought of. She had a gift for seeing connections that others missed. Without her and her team, the council sessions became chaotic. Arguments that used to last an hour now took days to resolve. Some disputes weren't resolved at all. Chancellor Vortok found himself working 18 hours a day just to keep the council functioning. "I never realized how much work the humans did behind the scenes," he told his assistant. "They made everything look so easy. The most serious problem was innovation." Dr. Yilneth made a disturbing discovery when she analyzed scientific progress over the past 2 centuries. Every major breakthrough had involved human collaboration. Humans hadn't invented the technologies themselves, but they had a unique ability to take ideas from one species and show them to another species in a way that sparked new discoveries. The crystal beings of Vextar had developed amazing computer technology, but it only worked for their crystalline minds. Humans found ways to adapt it for organic brains. The gas beings of Nebula 7 had discovered new forms of energy, but they couldn't build solid machines to use it. Humans designed the equipment that made the energy practical. Without human bridge building, scientific progress began to slow down. Species retreated into their traditional research methods. They stopped sharing ideas with other cultures. The galaxy was becoming less connected, less innovative, and less peaceful. Zephron stood in the Great Council Hall, looking at the empty human section. The chairs were still there, but they seemed smaller and more meaningless every day. He thought about all the times he had seen Ambassador Chen talking with different species before meetings. She would check on new council members, making sure they understood the procedures. She would chat with older members about their families and cultures. She always seemed to know when someone was having problems and needed help. The humans had been the social glue of the galaxy. They had connected everyone to everyone else. Now, without them, the galaxy was coming apart. Dr. Yilneth approached him with a datapad in her tentacles. "I've been calculating the long-term effects," she said, quietly. "And, if these trends continue, we'll have at least 5 wars within the next year. Trade will collapse by 40%. Scientific advancement will slow to the pace it was at 300 years ago." Zephron felt a deep sadness. They really were that important? "More than any of us realized," Dr. Yilneth replied. "We thought they were just another member species, but they were the heart of our civilization." Looking at the empty chairs, Zephran wondered if the humans had known how important they were. Had they realized that their departure would damage the entire galaxy? And if they had known, why did they leave anyway? 6 months after the humans disappeared, every communication system in the galaxy activated at the same time. Counselor Zephron was in his office when the message began. His computer screen lit up with the familiar blue and white symbol of Earth. Then Ambassador Sarah Chen's face appeared, and his heart jumped with hope. But something was wrong with the image. It was too perfect, too still. This was a recording. "To our friends and colleagues in the Galactic Council," Chen's familiar voice began. "By the time you hear this message, humanity will have departed for regions unknown. All across the galaxy, billions of beings stopped what they were doing to listen. The message was broadcasting on every channel, in every language, to every species, at once." Zephron felt his heart sink. This wasn't a rescue message. This wasn't Chen calling for help. This was a goodbye. This decision was not made lightly. Chen continued, her voice carrying the sadness that Zephron had learned to recognize in humans. "Nor was it made in anger. We leave with heavy hearts, but with hope for the future." The recording showed Chen sitting in her office on Earth, the same office where Zephran had visited her many times. Behind her, he could see the wall covered with gifts from different council species. A crystal sculpture from Vextar. A living plant from Forest World. A small metal art piece from the Kretai Empire. She had kept everything, Zephron realized. Every gift, every token of friendship from every species they had worked with. "Many of you are probably wondering why we left," Chen said. "The answer is complicated, but I will try to explain." She paused, and Zephran could see her struggling with the words. "For 200 years, humanity has been proud to serve as members of the Galactic Council. We have made friends across the stars. We have learned from your cultures, and hopefully, shared something of value from our own. The image showed different scenes from Earth and the Council Station. Humans working alongside aliens of every kind. Species learning from each other. The great diversity of galactic civilization. But over time, we began to realize something that troubled us deeply, Chen continued. The galaxy has become comfortable. Too comfortable. Dr. Yilneth, who was watching from her laboratory, leaned closer to her screen. This was the explanation they had all been waiting for. Every proposal we made for exploration beyond the galactic rim was rejected, Chen explained. Every suggestion for ambitious terraforming projects was voted down as too risky. Every plan for radical technological collaboration was dismissed as unnecessary. Zephron remembered those proposals. The humans had always seemed to want to do impossible things. Build cities in space between the stars. Send expeditions to other galaxies. Create technologies that seemed like magic. The Council had always said no. Too expensive. Too dangerous. Too uncertain. We understand why, Chen said, as if she could hear his thoughts. You have comfortable planets, stable governments, successful trade relationships. Why risk all of that for uncertain dreams? The recording showed images of different Council species on their home worlds. The Kretai, on their warrior planet, training and fighting and living according to traditions thousands of years old. The Altarians in their beautiful crystal cities, studying art and philosophy. The gas beings floating through their nebula homes, thinking deep thoughts about the nature of existence. But humanity's nature is different, Chen continued. We are a restless species. We cannot be satisfied with what we have already achieved. We must always be reaching for what lies beyond the horizon. Admiral Kethvar, watching from his ship, felt a chill of understanding. The humans hadn't left because they were angry. They had left because they couldn't stop growing, and the Council had stopped growing long ago. We tried to change the system from within, Chen said. For decades, we proposed reforms to make the Council more flexible, more willing to take risks, more ready to embrace the unknown. But the majority always voted for safety over exploration, for certainty over discovery. She was right, Zephron realized. Every time the humans had suggested something bold and new, the Council had found reasons to reject it. They preferred things the way they were. We do not blame you for choosing stability, Chen said, her voice gentle but firm. Your species have survived for millions of years by being careful, by avoiding unnecessary risks. This wisdom has kept you alive when other civilizations destroyed themselves through reckless ambition. The recording showed the empty council chamber, the seats where different species had sat for centuries, making careful decisions and avoiding dangerous choices. But humanity cannot live in a galaxy that has decided to stop growing, Chen said. We need to explore, to discover, to push the boundaries of what is possible. We need to fail sometimes in order to succeed in ways that matter. Dr. Yilneth felt a stab of loss. The humans had been the only species that really understood the excitement of discovery. While other species studied what they already knew, humans always asked what they didn't know yet. So we made the hardest decision in human history, Chen continued. We chose to leave, to go beyond the edge of the galaxy, to the places where no one has ever been, to discover what waits in the darkness, between stars. The image showed star charts of the galactic rim, where known space ended and mystery began. It was a region that even the Council's bravest explorers avoided. We hope that someday, when you are ready for new adventures, you will follow us, Chen said with a small, sad smile. The galaxy is large, but the universe is infinite. There is room for all of us to grow. Chen. She stood up from her desk and walked to a window that looked out over Earth's blue skies. Before we leave, we want to give you gifts, she said. Not just the technology we are leaving behind, but something more important. We want you to remember that it's okay to dream about impossible things. It's okay to take risks for something beautiful. It's okay to leave comfort behind. in search of wonder. The recording showed coordinates appearing on screen. Dozens of locations throughout human space, each containing technologies and resources that humanity was leaving for the Council. Use our gifts wisely, Chen said, or don't use them at all. The choice, as always, is yours. She turned back to face the camera one last time. We will miss you. All of you. Thank you for 2 centuries of friendship. Thank you for teaching us about the beauty of diversity. Thank you for showing us that different species can work together despite their differences. Her voice grew soft and personal. Zephron, thank you for always listening to our ideas, even the crazy ones. Yilneth, thank you for helping us understand the science behind our dreams. Vortok, thank you for keeping us organized when we got too excited about new projects. Across the galaxy, beings who had known and worked with humans felt tears or the equivalent emotions of their species. Kethvar, thank you for protecting us while we learned to be brave. To all the species we have worked with, learned from, and called friends, remember that goodbye is not the end. It is just the beginning of a new story. The recording began to fade. Wherever you are in the galaxy, look toward the rim sometimes and wonder what we have found. And maybe, when you are ready for your own adventure, you will come and find us. Ambassador Sarah Chen smiled one last time. Until we meet again, among the stars. The message ended, leaving the galaxy in silence. 1 year had passed since humanity left, and the galaxy was not the same place. Chancellor Vortok stood before the Council Assembly, looking out at the familiar faces of 46 species. The human section had been changed. Instead of empty chairs, there was now a memorial display showing the deep space beyond the galactic rim, constantly updated with images from the Council's farthest exploration efforts. The technology caches that humans had left behind had changed everything. Dr. Yilneth had spent months studying the gifts, clean fusion reactors that could power entire planets without pollution, medical devices that could heal injuries that were previously impossible to treat, computers that could think and learn like living beings. Most amazing of all, the plans for the engines that had carried humanity to the stars. But the plans came with a challenge that forced the Council to face its greatest fear. These technologies cannot be built by any single species, Dr. Yilneth had explained to the Emergency Science Committee. They require cooperation between different kinds of minds, different ways of thinking, different types of knowledge. The fusion reactors needed both Kree military engineering and Altarian artistic design. The medical devices required Nebula 7 energy knowledge, combined with Vex-Tar computer science. The star engines needed contributions from at least 12 different species working together. The Council faced a choice. They could continue their traditional path of careful, small improvements, each species working alone on familiar problems, or they could risk the chaos of true collaboration. The debate had split the galaxy. The younger species, led by the Zephyrians and the Neo-Aquarians, formed what they called the Progressive Alliance. They wanted to implement human-inspired reforms immediately. They streamlined their bureaucracy, funded joint research projects, and pushed for exploration missions beyond traditional boundaries. The older species, anchored by the ancient Kree Empire and the traditional Altarian Collective, formed the Stability Coalition. They maintained that the human departure proved the danger of too much change too quickly. For months, the two groups had argued, while the galaxy's problems grew worse. Trade was still disrupted. Diplomatic disputes still raged without human mediation. Scientific progress remained slower than it had been in centuries. But slowly, something began to change. The Progressive Alliance achieved their first major success when they terraformed a dead world in just 18 months. Using human-designed technology and cooperation between 5 species, they turned a lifeless rock into a garden planet that could support millions of beings. The traditional method would have taken 50 years. Word of the success spread throughout the galaxy. Other species began to ask questions. How had they done it so quickly? What other projects might be possible? Admiral Kethvar had been leading the new exploration efforts. Using modified human technology, his ships had traveled farther from the galactic center than anyone had ever gone before. They had discovered 7 new star systems and made contact with 3 previously unknown species. The humans were right, he reported to the Council. There are wonders beyond our borders that we never imagined. Even some Stability Coalition members began to reconsider their position. When the crystal beings of Vex-Tar saw how their computer technology could be combined with organic science to create incredible new medical treatments, they quietly began collaborating with the Progressive Alliance. The tide truly turned when the Kretai Empire faced a crisis. Their homeworld was threatened by a massive solar flare that would destroy their atmosphere. Traditional Kretai technology could not solve the problem in time. Their planet had 6 months before the disaster would make their world uninhabitable. General Vex-Mon, the proud Kretai leader who had opposed human ideas for decades, stood before the Council with a request that shocked everyone. "We need help," he said simply. "Our people will die unless we can find a new solution." Dr. Yilneth and the Progressive Alliance responded immediately. Using human-designed technology, they created a planetary shield that required expertise from 8 different species. Kretai engineers provided the military-grade construction. Altarian artists designed the energy flow patterns. Gas beings from Nebula 7 contributed power generation knowledge. Crystal beings provided the computer controls. Working together, they built the shield in 4 months. The Kretai homeworld was saved. General Vex-Mon came to the next council meeting with tears in his 4 eyes. "The humans taught us something we never understood," he said. "Strength comes not from standing alone, but from knowing when to ask for help." The Stability Coalition began to crumble as more species saw the benefits of collaboration. Within months, almost every species in the galaxy was participating in joint projects of some kind. The Council itself transformed. Chancellor Vortok implemented reforms that humans had suggested decades earlier. Meetings became more efficient. Decision-making became faster. New species were welcomed with mentorship programs that helped them integrate quickly. Most importantly, the Council established the Exploration Initiative. For the first time in galactic history, multiple species committed resources to push beyond the edges of known space. They built new ships using human technology, staffed them with crews from different worlds, and sent them toward the mysterious regions where humanity had gone. Counselor Zephyron led the first major expedition. His ship, named Sarah's Dream, in honor of Ambassador Chen, carried representatives from 20 different species. They had traveled for months toward the coordinates where human energy signatures had last been detected. They found something incredible. At the very edge of the galaxy, humanity had built a massive station. It was larger than any structure the Council had ever seen, a city in space that could house millions of beings. But it was empty, clearly abandoned. Inside the station, they found a message waiting for them. "Congratulations," Ambassador Chen's recorded voice said when they activated the station's computers. "If you're receiving this message, it means you've learned to work together well enough to follow us this far." The station was another gift. A fully functional deep space base that could serve as a stepping stone for further exploration. It contained manufacturing facilities, living quarters for dozens of different species, and, most amazingly, a shipyard capable of building vessels for intergalactic travel. "This is not our destination," Chen's message continued. "This is just the beginning. We've gone much farther, to places that will challenge everything you think you know about the universe. When you're ready, you'll find us." The message included star charts showing routes to distant galaxies, energy signatures leading to clusters of stars that existed in the space between galaxies, and coordinates for phenomena that the Council's science could barely understand. Zephyron stood in the station's observation deck, looking out at the infinite darkness beyond the galactic rim. Somewhere out there, humanity was still exploring, still growing, still reaching for impossible dreams. But they were no longer alone in their journey. The Council had learned humanity's most important lesson. Growth required risk. Discovery required leaving comfort behind. Wonder required the courage to fail while reaching for something beautiful. Back at the Council station, species that had never worked together were now building joint colonies. Young beings from different worlds were studying together in schools modeled on human ideas. Scientists who had spent centuries working alone were discovering that collaboration could achieve miracles. The galaxy was becoming something new. Something that honored both the wisdom of ancient traditions and the excitement of endless possibility. Chancellor Vortok gave the closing speech at the annual Council Assembly, 1 year after humanity's departure. "We gather today not to mourn what we have lost, but to celebrate what we have gained," he said, looking out at representatives who now sat in mixed groups instead of species-separated sections. Humanity showed us that goodbye is not always spoken aloud. Sometimes it is written in the choices we make, the risks we take, and the horizons we choose to pursue. He gestured toward the memorial display showing the deep space beyond the rim. They may have left us, but their greatest gift was showing us that we, too, can leave behind what no longer serves us. We can choose growth over comfort, discovery over certainty, wonder over safety. The Council members, representing dozens of species that had learned to see each other as partners rather than competitors, voted unanimously to approve the next phase of the exploration initiative. They would build a fleet of intergalactic vessels. They would follow the trails humanity had left. They would seek out their former colleagues among the stars between galaxies. As the assembly ended, Zefran looked at the memorial display one more time. The image showed the vast darkness beyond the galactic edge, but also the lights of new exploration ships heading into that darkness. Humanity's departure had not been an ending. It had been a beginning. A catalyst that forced the galaxy to confront its own limitations and choose between comfortable stagnation and terrifying growth. In losing humanity, the Council had found something even more valuable. They had found the courage to become more than they had ever imagined possible. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, 8 billion humans were probably smiling, knowing that their friends had finally learned to follow them into the infinite unknown.